Welcome to Read the Book First. This week we are going to be talking about The Wild Robot, the 2024 movie. And to talk about this beautiful movie, Amanda is here.
Hi, how are y'all? I can't hear you, so don't actually answer.
No, I want them all right now. Stop what you're doing. Stop sleeping. Stop washing dishes. Get out of your car and tell us to scream. I'm doing great.
Or if you're not doing great, because toxic positivity is real.
Anyways, before we get into the episode, a little housekeeping. This is the last episode of season three, which is like very exciting. And I personally, as a biased person, as I am the host, producer, editor, and content creator of Read the Book First, I've enjoyed the season a lot, personally. But this is the last episode, but do not fear, do not fret, do not worry. Season four is headed your way. I have big things planned. I'm very excited. Make sure you're checking us out on Instagram at Read the Book First Podcast because I am posting updates there. And also, I have started a Discord group for this podcast. So join us there if you want to talk. And really, there's a channel there for memes. Please just send me memes. That'd be cool. Um, and I'll link that in the podcast description below. Season four will be headed your way at the middle to end of spring. I have yet to set a date because I need to take a little break and then I can dive fully into season four. But if you want to have any says in future books, you got to get on our Discord and tell me, or on Instagram and tell me. You got to find me online, not in real life, and tell me.
Yeah, please
Unless you're
don't find her
Amanda.
on real life. That's weird.
Amanda can find me in real life and tell me because that's what she does.
I don't even need to find you. I just text you.
Yes, yes. The high privilege of being Amanda. Anyways, today we're talking about the 2024 Wild Robot. This movie was so wonderful. It truly did blow me away.
It was different than I expected.
Yes. Yes.
This movie's gorgeous. And then my immediate thoughts, as in like the first minute of the movie before the movie starts playing, it's just the logo. I was like, man, the DreamWorks logo changed. When did that happen?
The updated DreamWorks logo is like equally like nostalgic, but also like too much. Like they're trying too hard, but also it hit parts of it. Did I was like, oh, Shrek.
I liked it a lot, actually. I was like, yes, please make the Moon Boy a real character, like a real mascot.
The animation style in general, before like we go into like how the movie actually begins, like the animation style is beautiful, but the changes to the actual design of Roz, which you saw immediately in the trailer and in the poster, right? The roundedness. At first, I had a lot of conflicting feelings because I love the illustrations of the book so much. So at first I was like, oh no, it's like obviously different because it's a different shape. But I think in overall I'm happy with the changes because it did because the movie is different from the book. Obviously, we're going to talk about that later. And I think just setting Roz's animation style and design is different enough that you could separate it a bit from the book. So I think it played for both like being easier to animate a 3D object when it's a sphere. That's easier, I'm assuming. I'm not an animator.
Well, and then the arms and legs could stretch and do all these
Yeah.
other kind of things as opposed to this really big, blocky, inflexible robot. Plus, to quote a classic, if not friend, why friend shaped?
True. Roz is friend shaped. You're right.
And also like the kind of corporate scumminess that designed her would of course make her want to make her round and unthreatening.
Yeah. And like recent robots in like media over the last 10 years have become rounder and rounder. If you think about like all the Star Wars droids have become
Baymax.
rounder. Yep, Betamax, like softer edges, less, literally less sharp and threatening. So it makes sense.
None of y'all know me, so you don't know my beef with this movie. But this movie does what the Great Good Dinosaur, whatever it's called, wishes it could do, where it really combines that cartoony, beautiful, nature-esque colors but The Good Dinosaur sucks. This movie does what The Good Dinosaur wishes it could do. It's very pretty, and I like the colors, and it has a very distinct style without feeling disconnected from the animals and the landscapes. Because honestly,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, I was really worried about what the humans were gonna look like. And spoilers, by the way. Not that we get like a ton of humans, but the ones that were in there were not as scary as I thought they were gonna be. Because that's what I was
Yeah.
like low key worried about.
That's fair because I like I know everyone loves Wally. I once they get to the parts where they're humans, I can't stand Wally for various reasons, but part of it is the animation choices with the people. And I think that's a good
Hmm.
point. I right now I've watched The Wild Robot twice, and I cannot picture what the people look like, the humans look like. And I think that's good because the people
Hmm.
don't matter in this movie. The beginning of this movie starts with a huge storm, and I love that it starts with a storm. There's no like voiceover. There's no like the exposition. We're just watching. We're not like no one's telling it to us. And I think that's super smart because obviously it's similar to how it is in the book, but there is like a narrator in the book. Um, but I love that we have this huge storm and this huge wreck on the beach, and then we get the fisheye lens. And
Hmm.
at first, I was like, because I've talked about this before, I'm assuming. I am kind of sensitive to some animation styles and choices. Some things when they're animated make me nauseous, and I have thought I've pinpointed most of them. Sometimes it surprises me. But I was worried that I was like, if this fisheye is whenever Roz is walking around throughout this movie, I'm gonna be nauseous. Like if it's more than 3 minutes, my brain can't handle it.
Hmm.
So thank God it wasn't. And because it
Yeah, it was
wasn't,
just like the
yeah.
opening.
Which so because it wasn't, I was like, this is a brilliant choice. But it was almost as disastrous for me.
What would you have done if it had gone through the whole movie? Would you have
I
called
would have
me up and
watched it
been
and just
like,
complained about it. I have a stomach ache most days. Ask Isaac. I complain about it to him all the time.
are you at least brave about it?
I'm so brave.
Yeah, I really like that opening shot. And
Hmm.
like the way that the water looks in this is so cool. And then like if you haven't seen it, first of all, go watch it. The way that they have the animals is their fur, skin, and scales is this kind of shaggy looking, like sketchy aspect to it that works so well, especially when you compare it to the environment
Hmm.
where it's like it's on that edge of like they don't anthropomorphize the animals by giving them like big eyes and like human like faces and all that. They just make them animals with slightly bigger eyes. And so it
Yeah.
blends in really well with the environment.
It's very textured.
Yes, that's the word.
Yeah, there's a lot of texture and a lot of dimension, which sometimes it gets too much when like animators try to overly do it, and then it hits the point of my brain being like, you're gonna be nauseous. So it was close to that point. I'm not gonna lie. About halfway through this movie, I was like, I'm really surprised don't have a stomach ache right now, guys. This is pretty cool. But it's just the animation is just jaw dropping the whole time. The whole time.
Hmm.
But anyways, we have this fisheye lens look from what we later know is Roz pre being woken up, and then the little otters pop up, and the
So
otters are
cute.
so cute. I love an
So
otter.
cute.
And of course they turn her on randomly with a little push of a button, like they do in the book. And Roz wakes up and immediately goes through the like a robot waking up thing of like figuring out what language to speak in, which ends up being English because, American made movie. And then being like, how can I serve you? My name is Roz, like, etc. All her little lines. Um, and
That was a big difference that I noticed right off. And
mhm,
maybe, granted, a lot has happened since I've read the book. But
yes,
I don't remember her talking as much as she did. I
she
remember her
talks way
saying,
more in the movie.
yeah, and I mean you have to because nobody wants to listen to an internal monologue. You don't.
You don't. Yeah. Absolutely. But she's on the beach and then there's this huge tidal wave coming and again the water looks so cool in this movie.
Hmm.
And then she mimics the crab walking up, which I found hilarious. And like just her improbable way of crab walking up the side of the cliff. Just
Yeah, I
fun
thought that was
times.
just a really clever way of bringing in that improvisational piece that that she's a learning robot and that she gets all these things from the other animals without having to belabor the point too much. The way that
Yeah.
like if it was a totally faithful adaptation of the book, it would have needed to. That
Yeah.
was another interesting change is that she is not anti-water.
Yes. Well, you're
Because, like,
right.
remember in the book, it's a whole big thing. She can't go into the pond to rescue Brightbill when he's attacked by the
Yeah.
fish.
Well, she can send parts of her body. So it's like she's not fully anti-water because she sends
She
her
gets
hand.
crashed by a big. She gets crashed by a wave,
Well, she
and then
well, yes, but she's still on, like she's not like knocked. Like if she was out swimming, she wouldn't have been okay. But like it's like when we're waiting when we get hit by a wave. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
but that's still more than she could have done in the
Yeah.
book. That's all
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah. I mean, she's still like enough that she doesn't later jump in the pond still, you know. So
Yes.
it's yeah. But she gets up to the top of the cliff and this is one of the first time I wrote in my notes, this movie is gorgeous. I wrote that like 6 times. This is the first time I wrote it down. I was just like, a minute in and I was just like, what? What is this movie? It's so beautiful.
The
Another
lighting
change.
too.
Yes, the lighting, yes. The design in general is gorgeous. Like every scene, nothing's wrong with it. No comments as far as like visuals. Nothing.
Hmm.
Like perfect. Um, this next part of like, we talked already about how she talks a lot, but what she's like saying and how she's interacting with the animals for the first like couple minutes is like she's looking for a task and she's repeating stuff like, um, no task
She's
is too complicated or like stuff like that.
she's trying to figure out who ordered her to, like who's the
Yes.
person who is supposed to be in charge of her.
Yeah.
And so and then later it kind of shifts into task to task to task. But at first she's just trying to figure out, are you the person who ordered me? Are you
Yeah.
the person that ordered me? And fun fact, none of them know what she's saying.
Yeah, because they're animals. And then they also added the part where when she thinks she like helped a client with like the squirrels, she takes a picture of them and then prints out a sticker and then stickers them.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a fun little bit because you can, as you know, she's running around and just these mishaps of her attempting to help these animals. There's the stickers on every little thing, and I think that's just a fun visual representation of how much she's trying to do and how little she's actually doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. First of all, they have that moment with the butterflies,
The
which
butterflies. It's
so like Roz stumbles onto all of these butterflies and just gets to examine them and almost has this first moment of wonder, and then one of the butterflies gets eaten by a bird.
yes,
And she
and then
gets
that
attacked by like 30 things.
yes, this I was worried that this movie because in the book we talked about last episode if you have not listened go listen to the episode. We talked about how in the book they don't Peter Brown doesn't shy away from the like hard parts of nature, that death is a constant thing in nature. And I was worried that this movie was going to do that because, again, it's an animated kids movie. But we see,
Hmm.
like, the butterfly gets eaten by a bird. I think later a bird gets eaten by something. Like, there's still, like, animal death throughout the movie in a very, like, natural and realistic way,
Hmm.
which I'm glad they didn't shy away from that. I was worried that they were going to make it too, like, kumbaya.
Yeah, I mean, I think they did pretty well with that. I kind of wish that they had gone a little darker,
Yes. Yeah.
just a little.
I was expecting them to have like besides the big predators like try to chase things, I expected them to have no other like, you know,
Predation.
yeah. So I was pleasantly surprised with the amount they had. I agree though. I wish it did get a little bit darker like it does in the book. Um,
I mean, but like it's at the end of the day, it is a
yeah,
children's movie.
yeah,
And and the darker stuff in that respect wouldn't have really fit with what they were going for with this movie, which is,
yeah,
we're going to talk about it more as we get in, but it's a much more lighthearted take on that's a little bit more plot driven.
yes, yeah, I agree. After the animals all try to attack her at once, as that's happening, Roz is like, we have this really cool visual of Roz learning the animal language, which I really liked how they did that. Like we see how her computer is actually computing and adapting to her surroundings. It was just a well done choice to make it also so fast because in the book it takes a few chapters for her to adapt, right? Whereas
Hmm.
here it's like, okay, a few seconds, which, makes sense in this world that was high tech enough to build a Roz.
Yeah, and it was fun in terms of like, it was a montage. So it could have been a day, it could have been a week, it could have been a month. Like there's just no way of really telling just from the montage unless you sat there and counted the number of times the sun went around,
Yeah,
which would have
yeah.
been weird. And I definitely didn't try to do that.
There's like a good amount of like humor bits in this movie. Like right in the
Hmm.
like and during this part where the animals are all attacking her, the moose like hits her, which don't mess with moose. All you people out there, if you see a moose, get back in your car.
Yeah, if you think a moose is fun and nice and Bambi, you are gonna get murked
Yep.
fast.
Yep.
Don't mess
Yes.
with moose.
Don't mess with moose. I really liked those little humor bits, and we could talk about it, especially as we go later and meet the other characters. I think it's pretty balanced with the bits of sincerity and its humor. Like,
Hmm.
often in animation movies, there'll be jokes that they make for the adults, jokes that they make for the kids, and the ones like, and they just don't like hit. But I feel like these ones were very balanced.
Well, and also just as importantly, there weren't like going back to what you just said, sometimes in these kind of movies that have this cross appeal, yes, like you said, characters that jokes that are there for the kids, characters that are there for the kids, and then jokes that are there for the parents. And then there are the like really annoying, just they're supposed to appeal to kids, but they're every time they show up on screen, you just want them to stop talking. I'm not going to give any examples out of respect for everyone here.
So rude. If you're wondering what she's talking about, go listen to episode 2 of this whole podcast.
You said it, not me. Anyways, and this is the point where Roz figures out that she may not have been ordered by anybody on this island full of animals that she just learned how to talk to.
Yes. And she goes up to the top of the mountain to like start her little transport signal thing.
Because that was another
Um,
thing that was different is this
yes.
company created a failsafe, which is like, oh, that's so smart. Of course they would do that. Of like the robots, if they don't land where they're supposed to land for whatever reason, they get a little like signal flare, like that goes 3, 2, 1, and then it sends out, and then something is supposed to come and get them. But every time for the first couple of whiles, that Roz tries to set it up. The first time she gets hit by lightning.
Hmm.
Second time she gets surrounded and attacked from the inside by raccoons.
The
That
raccoon bit
was
is so good.
horrifying.
It was so good.
Horrifying.
That is okay. That is so what raccoons would do.
Yeah.
If they found a robot that was not gonna attack them, they're gonna like, I'm gonna pull us apart until there's food. And that's what they did, and it was hilarious, and I loved it so much.
I was so creeped out because I was like sitting there and imagining what it would feel like to have stuff inside of you eating you alive. Because I think too much.
One of the raccoons takes something from inside her. I think it's the transmitter. I can't remember. Anyways, it takes one of the raccoons takes something of her into the bear cave, and she chases it into the bear cave. And guess what? A bear in the bear cave attacks her because she just ran into the bear's home.
Yep.
Um, Here's a change from the book is that we have a bear and not the mom and the kids. I know you like bears, and we had a whole thing about last episode how bears swim. Did you were you affected by this bear change?
I was a little upset just because it had been so cool to see like a mama bear with like cubs
Yeah.
instead of just the stereotypical grumpy bear male character.
Yeah. So she's running away from the bear and she crashes into a tree and which had a goose nest. And this part I thought was decently dark for a kid movie because she's like realizing she like lifts up the wing of this now dead goose and realizing
Hmm.
that she like killed well, I don't know how much she's realizing that she's the cause of the death her crashing into it. You know what I mean? At this moment, at least she obviously realizes it later, for sure. But I guess because it's early in her robot life, so she has yet to have that like consciousness or empathy at this point, you know?
Yeah, I don't think it's so much consciousness or empathy, but I definitely think that she like recognizes, oh, I killed this thing.
Hmm.
Let me search through and see like, if anything else was affected by it. And
Yeah.
that's when she finds the egg.
The egg, yeah. And as she realizes there's one egg left, suddenly a fox appears and takes the egg, and then they have this little chase. Eventually, Roz gets the egg from the fox because he got attacked by quills from a porcupine. And our fox is played by the one and only Pedro Pascal. This is his first animated voice acting gig, and he killed it. So we have this fox, which the fox is a character, a minor character in the books, but this is like a huge change that they make the fox a main character essentially throughout the rest of the
Hmm.
movie. And I think that's a fun idea. I think because the book has so many side animal characters like the mom bear and the two kid bears and there's like two or three beavers in the books and the squirrel like the side characters in the book are just a lot because there's so many animals on this island. I think it was smart for them to put more effort into one kind of sidekick animal.
Well, and that's like one of the things that you got to think about when you're doing a medium transfer is in a book you can maybe you shouldn't, but it's more accepted to have like 30 plus characters that you're trying to keep track of with different motivations and different personalities and different speech patterns. But in a movie, like you really shouldn't do that because
Yeah. You gotta focus in, otherwise your audience is gonna get confused or bored. Roz helps the fox take out its quills, which was really fun, a little bit I thought where it's like this big old saw hand type thing, and then she just goes boink. Again, the
so
little
so
funny
this
bits
was
crack
a
me up.
it was very funny, and especially because like the fox clearly doesn't know what's about to happen, and he's like, "Oh my God, this thing that just spent the entire thing chasing me because I tried to eat this egg is now approaching me and grabbing me with like a big metal claw." And oh, oh, she's helping me. What? I got a question.
Okay.
Again, a lot of things have happened since before I read the book. Roz had slightly more sentience before she got Bright Bill in the book, didn't she? Am I making that up?
I think okay, well, it's debatable. I think she was less focused on like her purpose with a capital P and more on just surviving in the book.
Yes.
She was more focused on surviving, and in the movie, she is way more focused on purpose.
Okay. And that's why it felt like she had more sentience, because she had moved beyond that initial programming of, I have a task to do and I would like to live so that I, I would like to live, period.
Yeah. Yeah. That's where I see the difference. And not and like it's debatable whether or not that means she was more sentient in the book. It just feels more grounded, I feel like in the book at the very beginning. She's more grounded, I feel, than she is in the movie in the beginning.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think it's a bad
No, it's
choice.
not bad. It's just
It's just
different.
different.
Yeah. The egg beginning to hatch and then her trying to fix it and like keep it closed was so cute and funny to me. Um, but then we have the little baby gosling and he's so
And it
cute.
imprints upon her, and as soon as it hatches, she's like, "Okay, task done." Boop. This part was kind of confusing to me. Just in the sense of I was like, So why did she save the egg
She saved
if
the
she
egg because,
was just gonna like plop it down after it was born? What was the like I didn't quite get that.
well, she saved the egg because she thought the egg itself was the like customer, I guess. And then once she realized it was hatched, she thought that was the end of the task because she had not realized that motherhood was a task because no one had verbally assigned her with the task. Because then like a couple minutes later, the mom was like, "Motherhood is a task." Like she uses the word "is a task" or "your task." Like she uses that phrase, and that's what triggers
Yeah.
Roz to like be like, "Oh, I'm engaged in this now motherhood thing."
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Because I didn't quite follow it. I thought it was funny, but it was very interesting.
They also probably made it for
Um,
part of the
mm,
funny bits, partially a humor choice, but also they wanted to make sure that the word task like triggered her initial attachment.
yeah, and I think like I the only reason that I think I struggle with this choice is because I think it removes some of the ambiguity about like what makes sentience. Because the, discussion of like, was Roz sentient when she decided that she wanted to live? Was Roz sentient when she decided to take care of Brightbill? Was Roz sentient like when XYZ? Where in this movie, it's very explicitly tied to Brightbill.
Yeah. Yeah. Which like
And
it makes sense for what they're trying to do with the movie.
it's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. I
Yeah, and
agree.
exactly. It makes sense for what they're trying. It makes sense for what they're trying to do with the movie, and it plays into the overall themes because they really do tighten up those themes. Which
Yeah.
again, you got to do in a movie. You can have complicated movies. Don't get me wrong, but they can't be so complicated that you're sitting there and trying to figure out everything.
Yeah. Roz and this Gosling meet a mama possum and all her baby possums, and these little bits with the possum babies every time make me laugh. They're so funny. The baby possums all like pretend to die as possums do, and they have this one that was just taking a long time to die. And I forget what he says. What does he say?
Oh,
Um,
he's like, I have meningitis. It takes forever. And then they all start piping up, as
yeah.
children do with, oh, I have rabies. I have this. I have this. And their poor mother is sitting there being like, guys, this is going to get you killed. Please focus.
I also
Please
like
focus.
how she like calls one of them with the wrong name and they're like that was two clutches ago like or something like that as if like
Yeah.
so this possum she's like I've had so many babies. Okay. But I just loved the mama possum and the baby possums. They were adorable and funny and like again with like the little humor bits that they take the time to like make just pure humor. So fun.
Speaking of which, the best joke in the whole movie is take it from me. I have seven, six children.
Yeah, and the one little possum that almost dies because then a second later it comes back being like, "Mom, I'm all right," and she's like, "Wonderful."
Oh, yay. Shout out to Catherine O'Hara for playing this exhausted mom.
Yes, yes.
And at
Um,
this point, the like when Roz is assigned this task of motherhood, the mother opossum gives her like three tasks. Make it learn how to fly before fall,
mhm.
swim, and feed it.
Yeah,
And as Roz tries to feed Bright Bill a pine cone. Also, I just watched the movie today, by the way. I don't know if I
I
said that
figured.
before. Oh yeah, so just as like Roz is trying to feed Bright Bill the pine cone, the fox from earlier comes up and is like, "Oh my God, you don't know what you're doing, do you?"
And then he's like, "I'm gonna take advantage of this and I'm gonna eat that goose once it's fat." That's what he's thinking.
Oh, is that what he was gonna do?
Yes, that's his whole bit.
I knew he was trying to eat him, but like I didn't quite pick up on the let me make him fat first bit
Well,
of it.
first he was like, "Well, I can get this robot to feed me and also get her to feed this goose so then I can eat this goose."
Yeah.
Yeah, which like
Okay,
I love that the fox is portrayed that, and like of all the animals, I'd say the fox and then the geese later are the most anthropomorphized. But the way the fox is anthropomorphized, I think is fine because foxes are tricky characters throughout so many different types of mythology and stories and fables. It makes sense,
Hmm.
and also like it's well done, and it's not like the way he's anthropomorphized. I feel like it's just like it's balanced again, like I said earlier about this movie. It just makes sense of how it's done.
Well, and it's done in such a way that it's like it's not so much that this fox is sitting here and having like deep, complex moral thoughts. It's just like, yeah, my mom kind of treated me bad, and
Yeah.
I like to tell
I
stories.
wasn't loved.
Yeah, it's like,
If anyone
okay,
needs therapy, it's this fox.
big mood. So then the fox is like showing them around and like they meet the Laszlo beaver and the Laszlo beaver is working on this tree and I'm sitting there and I'm like that tree is going to be important later. Um
Hmm. And I love his whole bit is like it's part of the art. And I'm like, I love this choice to make this beaver like a snooty artist. Very fun. Like that's not been done before. I've never seen a snooty artist beaver. So fun.
yeah, that is new. I will say that I was just sitting there and I was a little bit like this is Laszlo if he was age appropriate.
Yes. Yes. Which is why he was probably cast as that role.
Like I loved it. Like I was like, yes, please, more of this
I
character.
I loved the montage of Roz building the nest where she's like where she's putting stuff and she's trying to ignore Bright Bill and like not have him help, but then he's like insisting on helping. He's like, "This is I'm helping too," and then she like kind of like rolls her eyes and is like starting to like lift him up so he can put a little twig on the nest. I thought that was so cute and so fun.
And
Um,
it was also like it's such a little kid thing to do. And I think that's something that I think like of all the characters that are anthropomorphized, Bright Bill gets it the worst because he acts so much more like a little kid than like an actual goose, which is
yeah,
actually low key a plot point because he
yes,
was
yes,
raised by a robot that was designed by humans.
yes.
I will also say, and this actually harkens back to a paper that I wrote once in high school, um, where I really liked it, and I don't know if it was on purpose or not, but when Bright Bill starts to talk, he just is echoing the phrases that he's hearing Roz and the Fox use, just like Roz, like, sits there and examines and copies everything. So that examination and reflection piece of it is, does get to raise that question of, well, if Roz is a learning robot who just learns and imitates and mimics, and the Gosling is learning and imitating and mimic, really, what's the difference? Aside from a greater outside purpose in life.
Hmm. When they're in the nest, the fox starts to tell Bright Bill a story, and they have like this meta animation where it's the animation of the story the fox is telling, and it's like almost like paper cutout-esque. Um,
So
s
good.
Such a fun idea.
This is something that DreamWorks has always done super well, though, is like the alternating animation styles as they like go through different parts of the story. Like they do this a lot in Kung Fu Panda, where like the dream sequences are done in this stylized 2D animation. And then like the opening of Kung Fu Panda 2 is like in this shadow puppet style. And it's always such a nice touch. And, you know, I'm not going to say Disney could never, because I'm sure they have, but not quite like this.
Hmm. Then Bright Bill ages, and he is almost an adult goose. Now he looks more like a Canadian goose. And he's going towards the pond because he needs to make friends, but also he needs to learn how to swim. And he is walking around this grassy area like a robot. He's like standing, he's like examining robotic phrases, like Roz
Pop
does.
boop.
Yeah. Which
Yeah.
like makes sense of why he's doing that, but like and like another thing is that right now most of the other animals in this on this island still feel as if Roz is a monster. So she's not yet been accepted and she's hanging out with a fox who is like an outcast character. So it makes sense of why he hasn't really interacted with other animals. and also that wasn't explicit on her task list to socialize him.
Yeah, and I mean it is something that is I don't know if it's missing so much as it's just a thing.
Yeah.
Um, but one of the things that I really did like about the book is how they very slowly built her into this community.
hmm
Um, like as she helps them out more and as like they learn from each other and as they see her not eat this little gosling.
Bright Bill goes to try and learn how to swim, and he's swimming like a person swims freestyle, except for he's a goose. So he
Yes.
looks ridiculous, of course, and he gets bullied by the other geese. And I would say of all the animal animation, the adult geese animation is my least favorite, just because of the placement of the bills. It freaks me out a little bit.
It does. Yeah, I mean they do have the eyes like on the front of the face instead of on the side like a real
Yeah.
goose. I didn't really notice. But
Yeah. Otherwise no issues with the animation at all. This is my own like, and it's not a bad thing. It's just Janessa's brain didn't like it. I was like, ugh. He's getting bullied, and then a pike attacks. The geese all like run off and like leave him to get killed by this pike. And so Roz sends like her hand into the pond to save Bright Bill.
it was kind of like, man, this is really skirting the line of non-violence, of like restraining and holding this fish back so that you could get away. When really, I mean, I guess it's not attack and I guess it's not violence, but
Yeah, and that's less of an issue. It's less of a big deal in the movie than in the book. Because in the book, she's talks constantly. It's talked about constantly how Roz is not violent, right? And how
Mhm.
she avoids conflict, physical conflict at all costs. Whereas in the movie, it's not really talked about. It's just shown that she isn't aggressive.
Yeah, and I mean, they kind of play into it more as a discussion of cooperation versus like survival of the fittest. I think it's a very fitting theme for this movie to take, just in terms of like showing the benefits of cooperation. The other thing, before I forget, the other thing that I do like about this movie is I like how Roz isn't infallible.
hmm
Do you know what I mean? Not that like she was in the book, but like and this kind of goes into the next scene of her teaching Bright Bill to fly. Um, a little bit jumping ahead slightly, but she has to enlist the hawk because, she doesn't really know how to fly and she doesn't have the experience and understanding. She can give him all the diagrams in the world, but that doesn't actually mean that he's gonna know how to fly.
hmm Yeah. After the Pike situation, Bright Bill finds out from the other geese that Roz killed his parents. And so he gets obviously upset because of all that in like a very teenager way. But we also find out that here is when Roz has overrode her programming. So like in the movie, it's when she has to protect Bright Bill that she becomes less programmed Roz.
Yeah. And the way that they showed that is they kind of give a little bit more background on Roz by having her go visit this robot graveyard on her
hmm
own instead of with Bright Bill, which was a really interesting scene just because it gives us that background and we get that contrast with the other Roz robot who's like, "Why haven't you activated your escape beacon?" And she's like, "I have a task and I am busy." And so the other one starts to give them the like little like beacon thingy. But first, she has to teach Bright Bill how to fly and all that.
hmm I did think it was interesting that we get to see the advertisement for Roz. Like, I think it's
Hmm.
I think it's a fun idea to include that information and makes it gives us more understanding to the world because we don't know much about the world outside this island. I think that's a fun idea. I do think it's a little unnecessary. I feel like they could have had Roz have these ideas and, choices of focusing on Bright Bill and not on where she belongs. Um, she could have had that thought process done a different way than necessarily seeing the advertisement. I don't know how. I just like it wasn't
Um,
like I'm not against like I didn't hate it. It was just like I don't know, it's of the changes they made and the additions they made. This one I was like, I guess you could do that, you know?
See, I honestly hated the reveal of, mostly because it led into a pet peeve trope of mine, which is like the liar revealed plot, which is like, you kept this thing from me. Oh my gosh, now we're gonna be mad at each other. And it's like,
The part about her killing these
yeah.
parents.
I mean,
Okay.
of course he's upset about it, don't get me wrong, but like I
Yeah.
kind of liked that was one of the things that I liked a lot in the book. It was just a very matter-of-fact conversation that she had
Hmm.
had. It wasn't like, and the other thing is that conflict felt so forced because we really just had a montage of him growing up. We didn't get to see her actively trying to keep this from him in any kind of way.
Yeah.
So it was like, I mean, I understand you're a teenager and you're mad. But it just felt like you just need him to be angry at her when he leaves, despite the fact that she's going to teach him how to fly.
Yeah. I feel like they could have just had him be mad that he feels like an outcast and not the part about them not her not telling him the full story, you know?
Yeah, and I just don't. Again, it goes back to it doesn't seem very Roz like to not tell him the full story, even if the fox is there.
Yeah.
Like,
The training sequence of him learning how to fly, Thunderbolt, which is this falcon who I asked my local bird nerd and Isaac said that it is not a real falcon. They just and I noticed this in this movie. They just added eyebrows to anything they could.
yeah,
Which like I think is a
it's
fine it's fine. Like I don't need these animals to be realistic. Like I'm not a biologist. That is fine. But I thought it was interesting and just because I was watching this with Isaac, I was like, is this a real bird? He's like, it's a falcon and probably an owl mixed together in animated ways, not in like actually. That's what it looks like. And I was like, okay, not a real bird.
I mean, I think they did that because if you give stuff eyebrows, it's a lot easier to give them like facial expressions without having to exaggerate too
Oh,
much else.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, like, and I'm not saying it's bad because I think they shifted in a way that it still makes for a really compelling story and narrative. I did kind of miss the Bright Bill being at the robot graveyard. I thought that was such an interesting part of their relationship.
Hmm.
Um, Once he kind of gets over the like, man, you're not my real family in the book, them having that. But again, I get why they moved it because they wanted to have that interaction later and have it be set up to mean something. Um, mean more, I guess.
Yeah. In general, the flying sequence I liked. I thought Thunderbolt was hilarious, even with his eyebrows. I did not like the song that they had. I wish they just had an instrumental song because I love the scoring of the rest of the movie. And I understand like it's classic like kid movie where you're gonna have one movie song that is made specifically for this movie so that you can make like I understand the mechanics behind this choice. I understand. I just didn't like it.
And that way you get your like your best original song nomination,
Hmm.
you get the like advertising, you get the streaming, you get the people like playing the song for nostalgia reasons and all of the things, but I didn't really notice the song at all.
I did just because it was suddenly a person singing, and I was like, "Why are you singing? There's no human." That's not really what I
They
thought, but
needed they needed to have a montage.
they could
What
have just
else were
had
they
the
gonna
instrumental
do?
version for the montage, and then during the end credits, have the original song. That's what they should have done.
Oh, see, you're so smart. I wouldn't have
I
thought of
know.
that.
Everyone should
Another
hire me.
really quick thing. Everyone should hire Janessa. Please give Janessa more money. Um, I also really liked how being a runt affected Bright Bill more explicitly in the movie than it did in the book. Because
Yes.
in the book they have that little like they have that little piece where they talk about it a little bit in when it first hatches, when he first hatches, and then they switch to I think it maybe comes up again when she's teaching him how to fly, but other than that, and it doesn't really matter at all in the book. But in the movie, it's like a constant, yeah, you're a runt, and this is why it matters that Ross chose to raise you, because if you had been raised by a normal goose family, they probably would have just let you die. And on top of that, you don't have the stamina, you don't have the strength to fly the way that everyone else does. So I
Mhm.
really liked that kind of justification and like depth that it gave to Bright Bill's character.
Yeah, I agree. When it is time for Bright Bill to fly off with the flock, his goodbye to Roz had me crying.
It's really
It-
sad because I was like, what do you mean that they're mad at each other?
they're mad at each other.
But they also still love each other,
Hmm.
but they don't say it. Are they really gonna leave before they say that they love each other?
Yep. I mean, they said it without saying it.
I know, but my cat kept watching the movie actually at this point. I don't know if it was the geese or if it was the fox making like cat-like noises or what it was, but she kept watching and watching. It was very cute.
She has great taste.
She does.
What is also heartbreaking about this bit is after he leaves, Roz just sits there for like a few
Oh,
days. Yeah.
and then also like he's like, "Are you gonna be here when I get back?" And she's like, "No, probably not," because she's planning on going back where she belongs because
Hmm.
she's decided that, you know, her purpose now that she has finished raising Bright Bill is to like go back to where she belongs and stop mucking up his life. And they leave it ambiguous for like a little hot minute about
Yeah.
like what actually happened there.
Yeah. We get to see the migration when they land into the city, and I thought the futuristic city was interesting. Um, it was a little freaky to have like this indoor like orchard farmland, you know.
Hmm.
A little freaky. We see all the other Rozes there. Um,
Well, plus like long neck kind of having this get down, be quiet, like don't say anything, don't draw attention to yourself, because it immediately sets that, oh, something, this isn't just like a greenhouse. This is something is up here.
mhm.
I also really liked, first of all, I want to go back to the Roz saying goodbye. I loved the motif of the little feather coming out.
Yes, I forgot about the
Oh
feather.
my God. I didn't because I wrote it down. Um, and then also as they were doing that migration montage, I liked seeing the whales go over the Golden Gate Bridge because
The whales over the bridge. I forgot.
it was such a nice hint to the stuff that we talked about last time with what
Hmm.
happens in the what's revealed later in the books about all these
Yeah.
different places.
And I
So
love
cool.
that we know it's a futuristic world because of the Roz of it all, but like that's the only thing we know. And so just being like, the animators just being like, what if we like made this like incredibly gorgeous uh brief scene where there's whales over a sunken Golden Gate Bridge, and they're like, yeah, perfect. It says a million words. And I'm like, yes, it does. It does. And it's gorgeous.
And then also the water, like very subtly, the water over the ruined cities too.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
it's a blink and you'll miss it kind of moment, but it's there and it's good.
Hmm. I agree. Um,
Um, so then they're in the greenhouse. It's creepy. Longneck tells everyone to be quiet and stay down. But Bright Bill, being a teenager, thinks he sees his mom and goes over to tell her something, and it's not his mom. And so nearly gets everyone killed. Good job, bud.
So if he had gone to the graveyard with Roz, he wouldn't have made this mistake, and there wouldn't have been the big like quote battle. I wouldn't really use that word as a battle scene, but like this equivalent in this movie, you know, where they're running around and they're getting shot at by the humans, um,
And then Longneck, like they're
sacrifices
about to.
himself.
Yeah, like they, but it was also like, first of all, we knew he died in the book.
Yeah.
Second of all, it was also a little bit of, he says something along the lines of, I'm glad I got to see that before I died. And I was like, oh, okay, so you're about to die.
Oh yeah. No, it was very obvious.
It was
Um,
so obvious. It was very intentional. And I'm glad that it wasn't like, I'm glad that it was less of an accident and more of like a deliberate choice on his part, just because it's more interesting that way.
Yeah. Like
That's
sacrificing himself for the good of the rest of the flock. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Back on the island, it's winter. Roz is in the nest, right? And yeah, Roz is
And
in the
then
nest. Also, Fink goes to hibernate and foxes don't hibernate.
well, he was in his den.
Yes,
That doesn't mean he was hibernating. It just
I
means that he
guess.
was like in he doesn't say, "Oh, I'm gonna go sleep." He just says, "I'm gonna go down in my den where it's
They're setting
deep
it
and
up like
cold."
he's hibernating like everyone else. And foxes don't hibernate.
I mean, neither do squirrels. Like, not all of the animals were going to hibernate. Some of them were just going to go to their winter burrows to try to find
Sure,
shelter.
sure, sure. That's not what they were
I
trying to say.
Anyway, so Fink.
Fink, yes. Um,
So he goes to settle and then he finds Roz in the nest and he's like, "Oh gosh, you're here." And she's like, "Yes, I decided I needed to know if Bright Bill lived." And I was like, "Honestly, good for you, girl." Um s- and then Fink is like, "This is the coldest winter that it's ever been. It's
mhm.
bad." And she's like, "Are there people in danger?" And I was like, I love that Fink immediately is like, "Oh, she's gonna go do stuff, isn't she?"
I love Fink this whole
He
time.
was so great. Such a
Hmm.
great, like, fun character.
Yes. So they collect animals like they do in the book and help save them. They don't save all of them. Some of them, animals do. They like allude to it. We don't see it. They just like shake their head and keep walking when they, spot an animal who passed. Which, like, I understand they're not going to show how horrific it is, but they
Yeah,
at
I
least
mean, I
mentioned
think
it.
they at least mentioned it because I was worried for a second that they were gonna make it out like everyone got out all hunky dory.
Hmm.
Um, but they have that very brief implication. And again, this is where I was like, I like that Raj just can't do everything because she does rely on Fink to help her find where
Where
all of these
everyone
animals
is.
are.
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
can't just do everything.
Yeah. And then we have all the animals in the nest and it's chaos and Roz is like shutting down because she's like exhausted her system. And
And she has
I
doesn't have any sunlight.
yeah. I like this is like in the book where they had the truce, they declare a truce when they're in the nest. I did like that there was more of a reason for that in the book because they did have the like truces before Roz was there, right? Where they would have like that one meadow that they would go to at
Yeah.
certain times for truces. And so I I like that it makes more sense in the book, and I understand why they didn't include that in the movie because again, when you're switching to this medium, you have to adjust for time and pacing. You know what I mean? It seems like this is where it seems the most like silly animated movie. It's not like bad, it just, not that like this movie hasn't been silly and animated the whole time, but like it's this is the moment where my brain I'm like, "Oh, this is a kid movie." Right? Where we have all these animals reading to each other. Like, is it adorable? Yes. But like, I don't know, for half a second, I was like, oh, yes, this is what we're watching. Which is like,
See,
obviously we are
I
watching that, but my brain registered it then.
I really liked it because it plays into the to what they're going for with the theme of having Fink as a major character. Because he's all about this is the wild, this is how we exist. We are like this. We can't do any of this. We can't depend on each other. We have to be these ultimate like selfish people where Roz like doesn't have any understanding of that because she's a robot that has been programmed to help people. Um so that those two conflicting viewpoints being in conflict the entire movie coming to a head in this scene, I thought was really, really nice. And I liked how Fink was, even though he's the one that nobody really likes, I liked how he was the one to sort of like have to carry it out and stand up for it simply because like Roz was shutting down and he could it was going to destroy the home that he had built with his little funky family of baby Gosling, Mama Robot, and Papa Fox. And he didn't want to see that get destroyed. So I do see where you're coming from with the, especially when it gets into like they're telling stories to each other and like they're all snuggling on the giant bear and nobody's hungry, nobody needs to eat. It's all fine. But I don't care. I really like it.
No, I mean I think it makes 100%, it makes so much sense with Fink's storyline, and it's I think a smart move with all the addition of Fink throughout the movie. It took myself out of it for a second. Like I was like, what? It was not like I was like, I
I
hate this. It was
also
just like a reaction. It was like, oh yeah. Okay, kid movie. Yeah, okay.
I also really like the line of we must become more than we are programmed to be. I was like, dang, that's like a good line.
Yeah, this movie's great.
I mean, they have a lot of great lines, but I had to write down that one.
Yeah. It's spring and the geese return and Bright Bill comes back and he is celebrated for like leading the group through safety and he's a big boy.
Roz goes to meet him and she's so excited. And then she sees how he's found his place and she's like walks away when nobody's looking because and Fink goes to go talk to Bright Bill and Bright Bill's like, "Where's Roz?" And then they look over and see that Roz is gone because she's decided that Bright Bill doesn't need her.
It's like it's
Very sad.
super sad and but also so touching because Roz or because Bright Bill immediately like ditches his now newfound group and is like, no, I need to go see Roz. Like this is more
Hmm.
important. And so I think it's so touching. But of course it's ruined by the invention of humans because a ship approaches.
Dude, I like almost lost my mind here because sorry, so a ship approaches and this like snotty little robot comes up
This
with
robot
the most annoying.
creepy.
It's so creepy, especially the way that like it explicitly points out, I am morally neutral. And I'm like, why have you been programmed to say that? Like,
Mm-hmm.
why is that a thing that is in your lexicon? Uh, Um, but she basically convinces Roz to come back, and I was so scared that they were gonna take Roz away before she got to meet up with Bright Bill again. Janessa, I was so scared.
I mean, the animals came and saved her.
Yeah, but I didn't know that the first time I watched it, and by the first time I mean the only time I watched it.
The during the animals, while the animals are battling the four other robots, whatever they call them in the movie, it's a fun time. Like at one point we have that one little like baby, I don't know what kind of animal it is. What the animal is like, are you here to destroy? Are you here to help us or destroy us? I forgot the question that
Or
this
kill
little,
us.
yeah,
And it's this little rabbit that did the same thing to Roz,
yeah,
except Roz, the thing was like, oh, she's not here to harm us.
yeah.
And then this thing immediately pulls out a gun, and so the rabbit's like, this thing's here to kill us.
Like the fun little bits with the raccoon. I love that Fink ends up getting a gun. I was like, yes, give this fox a gun.
I feel like it's in Pedro Pascal's contract somehow that he
Absolutely.
gets to have a gun.
And I support this. But like the battle scene is fun. Like the animals are using their smarts. They have the like the moose like hitting these robots and stuff. It's fun. But of course, they have to start the forest fire during this battle because then we have the whole beaver bit where they have to save the island, you know, which like
Yeah.
it's obviously it's from the book,
This
but it's like, okay, we're working together now magically. And I'm like, okay, guys.
See, this is the part where I was like, "Oh yeah, this is the kids movie."
Hmm.
Um, it's not how I thought they were going to use the tree. I thought the tree was going to be used to smash a robot. I'm not going to lie. I was
I didn't
pleasantly
know.
surprised.
Yeah, I didn't know what they were going to use. I knew the tree was going to be used during this scene of some sort. I did not know how. I agree. I was not thinking about that.
I feel like this part doesn't hit quite as hard, all of the animals coming together to save Roz because she's really saved them the one time.
Yes.
I feel like it's not as strong. Secondly, Roz ends up on the ship.
Yes.
before all this happens, Roz, like after they take down the robots and after the forest fire starts, the ROC robots or whatever the heck they're called explode and self-destruct and start fires and all the fun stuff. And Roz gets taken onto the ship and like the little creepy tentacle robot starts taking her memories and Roz is like, "Can I keep one?" And it's so sad because she starts losing all of her memories. It's a painful process. And then Bright Bill comes in to try to save her. And then her body is like left completely inert. And there's no like brain processor thing. So it's like, oh my gosh, they just killed Roz. Except, it's they did a Wally, so she's fine. Her heart is still there, quote unquote. Um, and Bright Bill restores all of her memories. And then he calls her mom and she says that that she loves him. And I cried so hard.
I also cried at this point. And like I feel like it's funny to me that this part of the movie is not like the part that like it's her heart and her love that keeps her alive. Does not bother me, but these animals working together to put out a forest fire does. And I don't know what that says about me, but it says something.
I mean, no, I totally get that though, because the it builds more off of the themes of what they were going for to have this,
Mhm.
and they've had that kind of running decision throughout of like Roz being like, I'm making decisions from here instead of from here. And like that's just been the way it is. And like saying that Bright Bill has a really big heart because he's been raised by this person or robot. Um, Whereas the animals with the forest fire, aside from, I know I made the comment about it being the driving conflict and interaction between Fink and Roz, but it's really not as heavily as a theme. And because there hasn't been that continuous cooperation and like interchange, it falls a lot flatter. So it's a little
Yeah.
like, oh, well, okay. Yeah, so somehow as much as sad as I was that like the robot graveyard scene didn't happen earlier, they made it hurt so much more in this particular moment that I kind of totally forgive them.
Yeah, Roz deciding to go voluntarily is like I saw it coming obviously in the book because it was a kid book and foreshadowing, et cetera, et cetera. But and obviously I knew it was gonna happen in this movie, but like I agree, it hits so much harder in this movie. And I'm not sure why, but like I was bawling and like not to shout out Marissa because I made Marissa watch this with me as well. We were having a movie day and I just like looked over and she had like waterfalls on her face and so did Isaac, and we're just all three of us are just sitting there like just crying at this part. It was so good.
So I have a theory. I think it's because it's a lot more visceral. It's one thing to like read a description of a battle and read like how all of the animals go through all this to try to save Roz.
Hmm.
It's another thing entirely to have to watch them go through all of this. And not only that, have Roz get saved multiple times from actually ending up on that ship.
Yeah.
Because like she had already gone through the process of losing her memories and losing this. And she knew what was going to happen to her if she went on the ship. And Bright Bill knew what was going to happen to her because he had seen it happen. So it's not just this amorphous, like, oh, I need to go back and learn who I am. It's also just as much, I need to go back to make sure that they don't come and hurt you because the creepy tentacle robot has a moment where she straight up points like says, I think I found the cause for your defection, and points a gun at Bright Bill. um which is a big motivator for Roz to like not let any of this crap happen.
Hmm. So Roz heads off on the spaceship to protect the island and Bright Bill. We get this like kind of like epilogue of the animals still having the truce in the nest and Fink reading to they're watching like the TV from the robot graveyard, which I'm like, why are you giving these people? I mean, I know it's because they want to remember Roz, and I'm fine with them remembering Roz, but like they're giving these these animals screen time. And I don't know how I feel about that.
I also love that they have like the book that the fox is reading, but it's just the
Yes.
instruction manual. So
Yes.
he's just making up the story. Um
I do like that
uh
bit.
this is yeah. I also love the new art on the door.
Yes.
Like the new little wood panel art. I don't even remember what it was, but I remember that I nearly cried. Um
Get that little epilogue of all the animals, and then we cut to the futuristic farming Roz situation, and we see that Bright Bill has finds Roz, and that well, first we see Roz struggling to like make friends, like she's introducing herself to the other Rozes, and other Rozes don't care.
and the human. She
Yeah,
introduces herself to the human too.
yeah.
And she doesn't like have like a very visible reaction, but there is something, it's just something so subtle in the way that she just like drops her hand and it's like, oh, that's cool. Such a good choice.
Bright Bill finds Roz, and like they just have this big old smile, and that's where it ends.
Does this happen in the sequel? You have to tell me pretty
Am I
please.
allowed to tell you?
Yes.
Where book two picks up, this is not what happens where book two begins.
Does it happen at some point in the book though?
Does in the series, does Roz and Bright Bill get reunited?
Well, no, no, like the very specific, does Roz get reminded of who she was because of Bright Bill showing up?
That specifically, no.
Okay. Because I don't know if I could handle reading that. I don't. I don't think I could do it.
You gotta, okay, you gotta, everyone, especially Amanda, needs to read the rest of the series. You'll read it in like an hour.
Yeah,
Get it from the library.
I know.
The movie ends, and this movie is so good. Not that, you know, like the problems I have with it are so minute.
Hmm.
Like, it's a great movie.
Yeah, and honestly, like I know I listed a couple of things that I don't like about it, but I think like for the story that they are telling, the decisions that they made were good decisions. And the decisions that they made that I don't necessarily think are good decisions were made clearly because of time. Because
Yes.
nobody wants to sit and watch a montage of all the times Roz helps all the animals and they still treat her badly.
Yes. I fully agree. Yeah. And I am curious if, you know, because this movie was successful. Like, obviously, I talked about it last episode, how it was up for the animated, best animated movie. It did not win. Flo won, which I am happy with. Amanda, you need to see Flo. Have you seen it yet?
No, of course not.
You're gonna love it.
Yeah, it's about a cat.
It's so good. There's no dialogue.
Yeah, I've heard good things.
It's
I was slightly bummed that this didn't win, even though I hadn't watched it at the time that the Oscars happened. Um,
I okay, so like I'm if this movie wasn't gonna win, I wanted Flo to win. Like, but I would kind of want rather this one to win. But Flo also just like the story behind the creation of Flo was amazing. But this episode is not about Flo. This movie is about the wild robot, or this episode's about the wild robot. Like this movie got nominated for lots of awards, Oscars, BAFTAs, other awards in the animated film world. It didn't win a ton of them. It did win some. Um, all that to say that like it was still a successful movie, both in the box office and critically, which I think it deserves because it's a just fantastic, beautiful movie. I'm curious if they even want to do a sequel, and I'm curious of how they would do that, just because of how the ending is with Bright Bill and Roz reuniting there. I think it's a great ending for this movie, but if they were to expand it into where the second book goes, I am curious of what they would do.
I mean, I think they could always do like a classic, just back it up a little bit timing wise to before Bright Bill gets there so that you kind of get like a little bit more of the monotony and drudgery.
That's I will say she does not end up in the like corporation farm situation.
Well, yeah.
So like if they were going to start from where the movie leaves off of where she is, that wouldn't make sense for the whole plot of the second book. So,
Okay.
You gotta read the second book. I don't have any fun facts because all the fun facts were about the book and the differences between the book and the movie. Though apparent, oh, I do have a fun fact. I lied. My fun fact, which is not really a fun fact, it's just a fact. I'm sure you know this, Amanda. This movie was co-written by Peter Brown, the script, and Chris Sanders. And Chris Sanders also directed it. And Chris Sanders wrote Mulan. He wrote and directed the original Lilo and Stitch. He helped write and direct How to Train Your Dragon. He wrote and directed The Croods. He is just a big name in the animating directing world. Um, and I think it's kind of fun how Lilo and Stitch has to do with an alien plane crashing, a ship crashing, and this movie has to deal with a boat crashing with a robot. Just two movies started with the crashes. I just thought that was fun. And that was just something that I made a connection with, not even an official fun fact. But
You're giving me a lot of credit that I knew all that. I was just about to ask you if Peter Brown's involvement in this filmmaking process was.
yeah, he helped
And
write. Yeah,
I knew, actually, I didn't know none of that. I like all of those movies.
me too. Well, actually, I've tried watching The Croods twice and I've fallen asleep both times.
Oh, I haven't watched The Croods. I haven't watched that one, but Mulan
And Lilo and Stitch, solid, right?
and Lilo and Stitch, they're on my top 10 Disney movies that I ranked with math.
So you didn't rank from the heart?
No, you need math.
Yeah.
The heart is unreliable.
I'm silly. I forgot the whole point of this podcast. Amanda, is this a good adaptation?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think it's a pretty good adaptation. It's not a bad adaptation. It's not my favorite adaptation because I like as like separate from the book, love this movie. Compared to the book, I think I still like the book a little more, except for the emotions that that butterfly scene evokes in me.
I
Like if
think
the movie
like
didn't have the butterfly scene, I probably would like it less.
I I don't know. I'm very mixed feelings. Very mixed feelings because it changes a lot in the sense of like actual plot points. And it doesn't have the same themes and discussion as the book either. But it does take the premise and make a good story on its own. And also, like, would the book have made a good movie? I don't know.
Because the book has a very specific like pacing and way about it, right? It's so like they were gonna have to change the amount they did
Mm-hmm.
change for it to become a movie. And I though like if I'm being like very nitpicky and pedantic, which of course I'm gonna be because I have a podcast, um, then yes, there are those things I'm gonna pick at. But like if I was just watching after I read the book just like more in a passive mindset, I would be like thrilled by this movie. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%.
Thank you, Amanda, again for being on the pod. And thank you, listeners, for listening. Thank you for listening to any and all of season three. I appreciate it so much. If you like the podcast, rate us 5 stars. If it's not 5 stars, don't worry about it. Share the podcast with your friends. Subscribe to us on your preferred podcast platform. So that way, once season four comes around, you'll just get a happy little, like, whoa, notification. Read the book first is back. Wow. But if you want to know more inside information, follow us on Instagram at Read the Book First Podcast and join our Discord where you can join Amanda's quest to make me release a future episode of all the stuff I cut out of what she says. But you have enough of you have to join her on the quest. Thank you for listening, and remember, read the book first.